morning, everyone. Like I said, my name is Richard Heineman, and I am the Stormwater Section Chief in our Central Office unit. So I deal with everything that covers anything with stormwater control measures, our MS4 permit, our construction stormwater inspection program also falls under me. So anything that has stormwater associated with it kind of gets thrown my way. So today I'm going to go over, my plan is about a half hour to go over our presentation here. Like I said, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. And I'll give about 10 minutes at the end, give or take, to answer questions on the fly. So right now I'm going to go over our Penndot Overview, our Publication 888, our inventorying procedures. Our maintenance IQ is where we store all our information. It's our GIS system. SCM inspections, so how we inspect our stormwater control measures, and then our stormwater control measure maintenance requirements. And I'll apologize. I know a lot of people call them BMPs. Here in the department, we focus more on stormwater control measures, so you can kind of interchange those two. So this is just kind of give a broad overview of Penndot. I know most people know what we do, but this kind of gives everything what we do, not just maintenance or project delivery or stormwater. So, you know, we have a lot of miles of roadways, lots of bridges, but also we do have ports, public use airports, you know, bicycle routes. So this kind of gives that, they call this our Penndot by the numbers slide. So just gives a high level. Before I get into BMPs, I just want to give a kind of where we're at with our MS4 permit. So our current permit was going to expire in 2016. So we're currently working under an administratively extended permit. Like everyone else, it covers discharge and stormwater conveyance. It covers our highways, rest area stockpiles, garages. Our permit is currently out for public review. They just put that out last Friday, so it's in the public comment period. So hopefully we'll be getting a new permit here shortly. So in our MS4 permit, I showed you a slide earlier how many miles of roadway we have across the whole state. If we're just looking at our 2010 census area, we have about 17,000 miles of roadway that fall within our census. Well over 10,000 plus outfalls, you know, about 40,000 acres of roadway surface in that urbanized areas. I know in our inventory, we have over 3,000 SCMs. 26 of those are ones that we actually own, operate, and maintain. I'll get a little bit more into that later about how we keep track of our inventory. So this presentation is going to follow our publications. So when I first got this job 3 years ago, maybe, we didn't really have a set publication. So we started working on developing one. It's called Publication 888. It's our Stormwater Control Measure Maintenance Measure manual. You can see on the right, that's what the cover looks like. But this covers anything that has to do with stormwater control measures from when the NOT is issued through the whole way through maintenance. So we have other publications that cover our designs of stormwater control measures, but this is our big one when it comes to inventorying. So the publication's well over, I think it's like 400 or 500 pages. So we tell our districts how to inventory all our SCMs, the different types of inspections we have, there's frequencies, we have standard forms and reporting templates that we use for inspections. We explain how our districts are supposed to submit those inspections and how we look at those results. After those inspections are done, a lot of those inspection reports require some type of maintenance. We developed stormwater control measure specific procedures for all different types of SCMs. I'll talk about that a little later as well. And then we realized most SCMs have common core components. So we talked about maintenance that kind of covers all SCMs as well. And then, like anything, we need to figure out how to schedule. There's a lot of need out there for us to upkeep these. So scheduling and how we charge those for as a department to keep track of cost and what work we're doing. So, and then down here, down at the bottom, that's the link to our pub. It is a public document. It's out on our, if you go to Penndot Forms and Pubs, you can search for publication 888, or this link here will take directly to it. So how this all started, like I said, back in 2015, we really didn't have a centralized database for SCMs. We relied a lot on the districts. Anytime we did a highway project, you know, we kept our plans. Those plans were kept in a filing cabinet or scanned on the district local drive. So if anyone ever really came prior to 2015 and asked for inventory, we would have to reach out to our districts, ask them where they're at, pull a whole bunch of plans, look at them. So we did major effort. We reviewed over 500 plus projects, reviewed the plans, and then we manually extracted all that data from our paper plans. So in our SCM inventory, it's a database of department-owned SCMs, but we also, here lately, we've been keeping track if they're privately owned or any other owners. We have a whole list of different types of owners. So that way later on, if someone sees an SCM along the roadway, they ask us about it, we know who that owner is, whether it's ours or not, because sometimes we get inquiries about that. We track over 40 plus different data fields in our inventory. We track anything from the closest roadway it's to the watershed it's in, the lat long. We have a whole bunch of different data fields, probably more than I'll ever need, but while we are collecting that information, it's easier to have more information in the inventory than having to go back and look at the plans and figure it out later. So, and you would think since 2015 we would have them covered, but we're still stumbling across existing SCMs, ones that may have been built back, you know, pre-2000s, and we add those as we find those. The inventory process for us in the department, the districts fill out forms and fill out what should be in that inventory. All those SCMs, as they get added, come into central office, my unit. We review all that information before we assign a stormwater control measure ID. All as-built plans now moving forward, we store in a network folder so we can get to those if we ever have to go look. And then we also, in our inventory and publication 88, we talk about how we extract that SCM data from plans. So if someone's looking at plans for key information, we kind of walk them through that, what to look for, what to keep track of. So this is kind of what our inventory looks like. If anyone talks to our districts or reach out to us, we have a unique 10-digit SCM ID code. The way we do it here, we do a district county code. So this would be in District 8. The SCM code type. So in publication 88, we have a whole bunch of different code types. That's that 3-digit right here. And then we just give sequential numbers as they're added to that county. So for this county, we can get up to 999 different types of this SCM code type. So that's kind of give that high level. This is kind of giving, I just pulled our numbers from our maintenance IQ. So as of right now, department owned SCMs is about 2,600. Like I said, we have about 400 in the inventory ish that aren't owned ours, or they're owned by someone else. But you can see here in this area here, District 8 area, District 6 kind of area, 5. They have our largest inventory right now. District 6 has well over 500. District 8 has right around 500. So it varies across the state on that level of responsibility. But still a lot of SCMs that we have to own, operate, and maintain. So I mentioned or referenced Maintenance IQ earlier. That is our system of record. So we don't really keep a spreadsheet. It's a GIS-based system. So once we get that information from the districts for our inventory, we have a user interface where we can add SCMs into our GIS system, and this is where we keep all our records, all our inventory records. So as you can see here, this is a visual SCM location. They're clustered here. You can actually see new routes. I always like point this out. So Route 99 out in our District 9 area, because that was a later project, there were so many SCMs you can almost delineate that roadway based on the SCMs. So, and that's why we mentioned earlier we expect it to double as we do more projects. There's going to be more SCMs added. It's not something that's going to be going away anytime in the future. So like I mentioned, it's our custom GIS application. It is for only internal folks can see this. It's not turned out to the public. We are having discussions about turning this layer on to our Penndot 1 map, so anyone could go and look at those locations. So if you would click on one of these dots, it has everything that's in our inventory, our SCM ID. It also has our inspection records. When we go out there and inspect, we'll upload that information so you can see those. Any photos that we take that's assigned to this SCM ID will also show up when you click on these dots. So we figured it's a lot easier to have a GIS system for people to look at that information and read only at our districts and can pull it. So it's working out well so far, I guess. So that's kind of our inventory, that high level. Like I said, in Pub 888, if anyone wants to go out and look and see what all fields we capture, you can go out and do that. I could talk just on inventory probably for an hour, but so like in any good asset management system, once you have everything inventoried, then you need to go out and do those inspections. You got to have that understanding of the condition of the assets. So that was kind of our next step. We realized there was really no standard stormwater control measure inspection course. We had people come in and try to say, hey, we have one, you should take ours. So in the end, we developed our own in the department. So any inspector that goes out and does our different types of inspections have to take this course. So we have two different types of inspections. The easiest one or the high level one where anyone, as long as you take this day and a half training, we call these our visual screening inspections or VSIs. Typically, you're about an hour on site. You don't need the as-built plan. This is really a visual indicator. You're going out to look and see if there's any major problems. This is on a 3-year cycle. We have standard forms as well. Our M77 is that VSI form. And then we also have a photo log out there. If districts want to use that, they can take photos, write descriptions on that as well. So I'm going to walk through what this form looks like, the VSI form. It's a 1-pager. It's a smart PDF form. Right now, you put the date, time, the SCM code, that type of ID, whether rain lasts, and if there's any photos. We actually break it up into 5 different categories. So when they're out there filling this out, category 1, we want them looking for trash and debris. Is there any anti-skib out there accumulated? Is it a problem? Yes or no? If it is, we have action codes. I'll talk about that in a couple slides on how bad it actually is. So we go through them. We want them looking at all different locations in the SCM and whether it's trash or debris. The next big one we want them to look at is erosion issues. So we want them looking at, the inflow channel, the SCM bottom, anywhere, where high erosion may occur. The other big thing, and I'll talk about some more of the results we've seen in later slides, but, ponding is a big issue that we see. is there standing water? Is the subsurface not draining well? The other thing too is a lot of people think about the water's not going anywhere, but some of our permanent pools, if it's low or dry, then that's another issue if there isn't enough standing water there. And then we always have this kind of other out there that if there's any other issues, they can put that in there and write a brief comment. So the next big thing we see a lot of is vegetation. Whether we're out there mowing them enough or woody vegetation, the embankments, in the great state of Pennsylvania, don't take long for, it doesn't take long for a tree to grow. So the woody vegetation grows pretty quick if you don't keep on top of it. And then lastly, we have this miscellaneous category, right? Is there any E&S control measures still out there? Any structural damages, sinkholes, any contamination, animals out there? We have a general comments section here. And like I mentioned to earlier, we have different action codes. Actions from 0. So if you write a 0 over in this box here, there's no action. You don't have to do anything. 1 might just be routine. So like in vegetation, maybe the grass height's a little high. You just have to make sure you're getting out there and doing your routine maintenance. A corrective one, you have a 6-month response, a 4-week response, and an immediate response. And when we saw initially, when we did our initial inspections, we saw a lot of 5s. So these visual inspections aren't really an engineer or landscape architect or someone that designs these or may know what's going on. So we saw a lot of 5s requiring someone else with a little more expertise to come out and look and do these engineering evaluations. Oh, it is important. Any actions 2 through 5, we do require a photo to accompany those. So that was the high level. I always tell people the VSIs are like a triage type inspection. You can go out and do something quick. Our next level inspections are condition assessments. So these are kind of real in depth, 2 to 4 hours on site. We want someone there that has an engineering or environmental professional or apprentice required. So, you have to have that a little bit more better understanding. We want people to go out there and confirm that accuracy of as-built plans. I'm sure some of you have noticed early on when as-builts were first required, even though it says as-builts, it's not always what's out there. So our standard form for these are M79, and all these forms are public documents too. So you guys can go on and look at these at any time. This frequency for these, we require condition assessment 1 year after construction and then every 10 years after that. And like the VSI, this is another 1.5 day training required for anyone to do these. You have to take these trainings. Whether you're a consultant or internal staff, it doesn't matter. You have to take this training before you go out and do these inspections. This is high level. This is also in the pub, but if you want to look at our inspection frequency, year 0, we complete that construction. We want a condition assessment year 1, a visual screening within 3 years. Some SCMs require kind of a startup check, so we tell people these first 3 years, make sure you get good established SCM, vegetation, you might want to go out there and do additional ones. And then as you can see here, we have on a 3-year cycle, year 7, and then year 10, we want to go back out and check that. This is my cheat sheet that I give a lot of people about, well, you have different SCM types, what our districts are, what inspections do I have to do? Is there a time frame when I should be doing these? So you can see here, if you have a bioretention, we're asking people to go out there and do that startup phase, checking those, check it in year 2, 3. And also we really only want people going out there in spring and fall to look at these types. going out doing inspection in the middle of winter. For certain types, it's really hard to tell whether you have the right vegetation out there. So this is kind of that cheat sheet of when you can do inspections and whether they're required or not. So like I said, any good asset management system, you got to go out and take that inventory or conditions of your assets. So about a year ago, we pulled all our inspection records in central office and kind of looked at this data, did a little more deeper dive. So we looked at all of our different types, basins, bioretention, infiltration, wetlands, manufactured treatment devices, other. So in those, we documented over 2,000 problems. And of those, 55% of the problems noted require some type of corrective maintenance or an evaluation. So this is kind of this high level, what we're seeing. We see a lot of issues with, debris and trash, vegetation, a lot of issues with that, erosion and ponding. So, you can see here, there's a lot of action code 0 to 5, less than 2 to 4. And then we get to that engineering action code 5, we only have 5. So they kind of trail off as we go. This is kind of the most common and where it's at. So like trash and debris, we're seeing a lot of trash and debris as you would expect in our inflow channels and our SCM floor. Erosion, we see a lot more on the bottom and side slopes and inflow channels. So by taking these results, we kind of did our own mini research project just so we know where we need to focus a lot of our efforts in getting our assets up to better condition. Our basins, we see problems in every category. Our bioretention, we're seeing a lot of minor problems, localized erosion, sediment debris, infiltration, poor infiltration. We see that a lot, especially some of the older ones and depending how they were constructed. And then swales, we see a lot of issues with whether it's a homeowner changing it or things get tweaked, the intended flow pattern and obstructions in those. Also, some of our swales that are supposed to have check dams might not have check dams anymore. So those are kind of those inspection results. So we've seen this kind of helped us realize what type of maintenance we really need to focus on, and what are our conditions of our assets out there. So that kind of wraps up the SCM maintenance. The SCM inspection. I'm going to roll into our SCM maintenance. And our pub and the way we look at our maintenance program, we kind of break that up into 2 different types, routine and corrective. Our routines are regular cycles. So vegetation management, make sure you're mowing, that should be done every year for certain types of SCMs. Corrective ones is if we find a problem, we need to go out there through inspections and go and fix it, do a little more work. This is my kind of that consumer reports, routine maintenance by SCM category. So we have all our different SCMs here. Like grass maintenance, we're saying, for basin, semi-annual, vegetation management, annual, odor control, annual, sediment removal is as needed. So our folks on the field can grab this one table in our pub and kind of see what that routine maintenance frequency should be. So rolling into corrective maintenance, I'm not going to go through all the different tables. This is actually the largest part of our publication. So in a corrective maintenance world, we actually came up with different tables from general corrective maintenance we're seeing through all the different types of SCMs we have. There's specific corrective maintenance tables for all the different types. Here's a screenshot of that. This is what the table looks like. We talk about what the different SCM components that's where the SCM is identified, the defect or the problem. If there's any, what is the concern out there? That defect code on that table will actually correspond back to the inspection. And then same here with the inspection action code. So the other thing we were asked by our districts is, when do I have to do that maintenance, right? Like, you're saying there's erosion, but when do I have to go out and actually fix that? So we actually wrote up some verbiage to kind of help explain when that action is required. We talk, and then we also tell them what that recommended maintenance activity to correct that problem is. And then for us, this is more of a charge coding for us when we talk about assembly numbers. That's how we track all the different types of SCM work that we've done. So these are just some of the things we're seeing out there. We have tire ruts, sediment accumulation, a lot of trash and debris maintenance that we're going out there doing. A big one for us is woody vegetation in the embankment. This actual emergency spillway, but you can see that tree's been there probably for a little bit longer than I'd like to see. Erosion, depending on how, a lot of time in the department, we like to tuck our SCMs kind of along our roadways. So some of these embankments here lend to more erosion if we didn't get that good established vegetation. Same way with outfall erosion as well. So, why do we maintain SCMs? I mean, I always tell people we have to. We have our MS4 permit that requires it. Also, our 102 code. It's a good practice for us. Also, like in any other good asset management system, our regular maintenance now means less intensive maintenance and costly repairs later. So we're actually seeing this now. Some of our stormwater control measures that may have not been on a more routine schedule for maintenance, our districts are going out there and actually like contracts to rebuild and repair these SCMs. So it costs more in the long run. Also, what this kind of ties into our maintenance. So we realized we developed this pub. It was great for folks in our office, but our foremen were, I don't want to say complain, but they were saying, all right, that's great. You're telling me I have to go do this, but I don't know what to do, right? Like, our foremen know how to plow snow. They know how to crack seal, but, SCM maintenance for some of them was kind of new. So we're actually working through an effort right now to develop SCM maintenance training and more of a modular approach. So if they're going out doing a specific type of SCM, these are the modules that we're going to focus on. But, vegetation identification, that was a big thing that some of our guys thought, oh, well, I need to mow that all down. It was bioretention. They weren't supposed to. So then we had to go back and fix that. The different types of maintenance equipment, I get a lot of calls about, well, you tell me I can't drive out there. Well, how am I supposed to maintain, infiltration basin without having the right equipment out there? What I talked about earlier, routine corrective maintenance activities, how you charge that. And then we added this module here, a high level training for maintenance review of design plans, because sometimes our maintenance folks get handed plans. So, well, here, this is what you need to do. So kind of going over that at a high level. And that is all I have. So this is my contact information. Any more questions?
Yes, we do have time for questions. We've got about 10 minutes here. And we've got a question here. Do you have a similar inventory and maintenance database for the rest of the MS4 system, such as inlets and piping, the conveyance system?
We are working towards that. But I do not have a maintenance IQ yet of all the pipes, inlets, and connecting that conveyance system.
Okay.
If I need to find that, we would pull those plans and look to see how it was constructed. It's just we have a lot to catch up on, I guess, because some of the roads we inherited, so we didn't even build some of those systems. So some of our back 4-digit SRs, way back when there could be hundreds of pipes in an MS4 area. I know MS4 systems just urban, but I'm always shocked to what they consider urban when they do those mappings. So, but no, we don't have one similar to Maintenance IQ.
Besides the inventory piece of the conveyance system, is that part of the routine visual inspection they do when they go out and look at a pond or other stormwater control measure? Do they also look upstream at the conveyance system coming into that?
Part of it coming into that. We actually have a whole other section where, we go out and do, we call it stamp systematic. We go out and look at all our pipes and have condition data for that. So we inspect our pipes. It's just we don't have a complete, inlet box pipe conveyance system. So we have a separate inspection system for that conveyance system.
Okay, and here's another one here. Do your inspection reports get tied into your QI system?
Yeah, our visual inspection reports do. We're still working towards trying to get those condition assessments in, because the condition assessment is it's a real in-depth, I think it's 8 or 9 page report. The visual, all the data that is captured in a visual inspection gets transferred into Maintenance IQ. So it's a field in Maintenance IQ. It's not actual the report per se.
Okay, and here's a data mining question. There's not a lot of literature out there on maintenance costs. Do you have any information you can share about costs for your maintenance activities?
We're getting better on that. I'll be the first one to say we've really kind of ramped up our maintenance efforts on SCMs within the last year or two. So I don't have any numbers right at my fingertips that kind of give that statewide cost, but we're looking at that with our assembly numbers, see what it does cost. I know it does vary. And I know some of our districts are finding out that depending on the type of maintenance, it's easier to lump a bunch together and have a contractor maybe come out and doing some of that maintenance costs. And then some of our maintenance costs are just kind of lumped in with other activities. So.
Okay, and then here's another one as well. You mentioned the inventory is not included in your public-facing interface, but if a municipality is working on their own mapping, can they request the Penndot layers within their boundary? Many of the older mapping systems don't seem to include the distinction between yours and theirs, I guess.
Yeah, so I can share the SCM layer. The pipe layer, like I said before, is it takes some catching up to, but they can always reach out to me and we can share that information. I can share it as a shape file or however they want it. So, but the plan is to turn it on to the public. The reason we didn't turn it on the public right away, like I mentioned before, it took us a while to get our inventory in there and verified and inspected. So now we feel pretty confident that if we're saying there's an SCM out there, it's actually there and it's ours. So.
All right. We do have a few more minutes. Any further questions? Type them into the chat box. We've got an awesome response to your presentation already, Rich. Any further questions?
And I'll throw it out there. Anyone on the call, if they want to talk to me more or have any more questions, if you can't find our publication, Pub 888, or I can go in more depth and detail about that. That's kind of our program. It's kind of hard to squeeze all that in an hour or half hour. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to checking out that manual myself. What about your training materials for your visual inspections and your other training? Do you guys make that available to the MS4s or the materials themselves? I know your training sessions themselves are probably restricted to staff.
No, actually, we've had municipalities sign up for those visual site inspection trainings.
Great.
So it's on our training calendar. Anyone can take them. When it comes to training material, if a MS4 wanted to reach out, we could probably work with them. We're always leery about just throwing out training type material because we do require people to take a test for both of those trainings for inspections. So we do give that book out to anyone that takes the test. So, but when it comes to training, I'm all for sharing information. So
very good. Here's another question just came in. Is there a primary scenario where Penndot is charged with O&M responsibilities but is not the owner of the facility? And parenthetically here, it says avoiding eminent domains, taking SCM treats shared stormwater and so forth.
Yeah, I can't think of off the top of my head. There are some weird cases when, the 102 requirement came out where we had some SCMs that were built and we're the owners, but permanent right of way was never secured. So we had to go back and, work through that issue. We don't have a lot of those because we try to tuck them in, but.
And here's a related question that's come up here as well. How does PennDOT ensure the SCMs that aren't owned by you guys are being maintained by the other owners?
So if we're doing a project and we're building, we say it's someone else is going to take over that ownership. It doesn't happen a whole lot, but we do require them. We require either a legal agreement with a municipality or whoever, or if it's a private owner, we would put that on the deed as an environmental covenant, I think is how we do that.
Okay.
For if we're not owned by us. So.
All right. I'm not seeing any other questions in the box. I do think there was some positive reactions to the fact that your training is open to MS4 folks. So if I'm not seeing any more questions, I want to thank Rich. That was a great presentation, great slides.